than consciousness info. Sa.neter TV7. He keep it hot 24/7. He got that black for 102. Sa.neter TV2. Yeah.
You are now inside sa.neter Studios. House of Consciousness Production. Black News Presentation. Sa.neter. Sa.neter.
So peace and hotep to my family that's here. I mean, this is a beautiful thing. When people found out that I was bringing the elders together, they said, man, this is going to be one of the biggest and best information outlets that y'all could have right now. We got Baba Heru sitting in the middle. Of course, the strong, mighty warrior, Mfundishi. And of course, we have Professor James Smalls. I want to start with Professor James Smalls, and then we're going to go right down the line. All right. So, Professor Smalls.
Yes, sir.
What do you think of Zion Lex after your sit down? After your sit down, many people feel that he was out of line, especially when you left.
Well, my only comment is that Brother Zion Lex is a child, and we have children who are delinquent. We have children who's in need of being taught to be respectful. And if you say, I am the light, then you've got to offer some brilliance. You can't just have a label of light and then you behave like you're in darkness. So that's as much as he's a child, and saying that is enough. And I took the position as an elder not to engage a child.
It's, first of all, I want to make a correction. It's the book of Anui. And Anui is an important character because he explains the book of coming forth by day, how to prepare yourself for eternal life. You see, the life that we are involved in now is an illusion based upon your ego. And there's a veil between your ego and your higher divine consciousness. And Brother Anui is trying to show you how to overcome the trials and tribulations of the ego to reach the oneness of the Creator. And so he left a legacy behind, because there were many books before that, but his book is one of the most complete ones. But that's still very late. He's in the third golden age. But there were many examples. We need to go back to we call the Mirkut text, or the pyramid text, which was even written before ancient Kemet came into existence. And it lays down the foundation that we are star children, that we have always been here, and we are the first humans here, and that we are the parents of everyone on here. And it's important for us to take counsel from our spiritual elder ancestors, then the physical elders, and then the experts among us, so that we can have immortality, and that it is clear that Ma'at is the center of everything. And Ma'at, you know, is depicted by a sacred black woman wearing the ostrich feather. But it's truth, justice, righteous, harmonious balance, reciprocity. And we need to remember reciprocity. A lot of times we leave that out. That means those that have done us wrong, we need compensation, and we need to make sure we right that which was wrong. And so Ani is just a stepping stone. Anui is just a stepping stone towards us correcting ourselves, overcoming the ego, becoming one with the divine nature, which is spirit inside of our mind.
People usually ask me, well, which one should I use? We usually tell them to get the one by Budge, even though that may not be the best, because there's several. There's one by Faulkner, a copy of that. I have an actual photographic lithograph that was printed up in 1880. I got it from some library that was going out of business in England, from Samuel Wises. Everybody remembers Samuel Wises, yeah? Yes. And I wanted to bring that with me, but it's so big. It's such a big book. Gosh, And because I wanted to demonstrate what I was saying about whiteness, about Anui and his wife Tutu, how she was actually, her face was painted as white as the sand, you know, because she represented her presence with Anui in spirit. But that's a very very important sesh. That's what we call the papyri sesh. And I think that everyone should have a copy of it. One of the good things about it, the way it was done, is that we have a line of the glyphs on the top. Then we have the literal translation, transliteration, and then the English translation. Now, Mr. Burgess is an Englishman, so he's going to use Shakespearean talk. He's going to say the these and the thous and the thys. You know, that makes it more spiritual in English. But it gives someone at least a toenail entry into learning something about the glyphs. So sometime in my class, I used to have them copy the glyphs with their left hand and their right hand. So they will develop that ambidextrous nature that we've lost. Since we have been captured here in the West, we've all been made right-handed in order to support a totally male aspect within ourselves, on the left brain. And so I have them use both right and left hands to write the sa.neter. You do the same thing, don't you?
I do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
So as a beginner student, if whatever hand they are, as a beginner student, whatever hand they are, they can use that, but they have to write in both directions.
Precisely.
Once they become intermediate and advanced students, now they have to write with both hands, because it's both hemispheres that have to be developed. In fact, if you were a Kemetic priest, you're not supposed to be right-handed or left-handed. You are supposed to be ambidextrous.
Both-handed.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why I recommend people to come to your class, Mfundishi, because you're truly in that spirit of Chehuti, where you're teaching the word, and of course, when you're learning the word, Ma'ata is right with you.
So, a lot of people who study Nile Valley culture, they do get a little confused, because often what they do see is the Parineh Meru, right? Or what is called the Book of the Dead, or the Pyramid Text, right? Or the Makut Sabiat, as Mfundishi correctly says, right? Or the Coffin Text, right? But that is at the end of your life. There is preparation for that, right? That book shows basically all that you have learned in your life. You're supposed to use it for life after life, right? So there is a path of life, a Wat in Ankh. And the Wat in Ankh, the path of life, is what the period that we're in right now, that we are in preparatorial type of instructions. So, like I had said, when I opened up, I had talked about a group of masters that we sit on, so I don't have to repeat that. There are lots of other elders out there, like Patah Seeker, but why don't we just take the time just to talk about the people that we sit on, right, or that we know of, just to fill the void, right? Do you think that's proper?
We can show them.
Yeah.
All right, it is easy. I can specifically talk about some of the Jegnas that have been in my life, okay? We talk about Dr. Yosef Ben Yaakman. I had the privilege of traveling to Kemet with him as his assistant 5 times, 7 times altogether, Ethiopia, Sudan, and ancient Kemet. Dr. Senjeti, who we call Dr. Jacob Crothers. My teacher in the sa.neter, Sister Riketi Amon, who made it clear that this legacy is not real unless you can read the words of the glyphs, and not taking your Dr. John Henry Clark, who was just profound in his being able to pinpoint how to categorize this. Asa Hilliard for his instruction on not using dynasties, because that was created by Manetho and the Greeks, that Mentuhotep never knew he was the 11th dynasty, okay, and I'm sure Pepi never knew he was in the 6th dynasty, okay. This is the first golden age, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, so those giants are the ones that restructured this so that we can call it the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th golden age. Being able to network with my brother here, Heru Ankara Samaj, who I met in 1982, I believe. We have a common friend, Brother Patah, who saw me in New Brunswick and said, "Brother, I know your twin." He said,
Matter of fact, some people were saying that when I appeared, they say, "He looks like Mfundishi."
he says, "You got to meet this brother. He's in Chinatown. You got to meet him." I said, "Well, look, brother, let's make it happen." And so Brother Patai brought me over and introduced me to Brother Heru, and we've had a beautiful friendship ever since then. But there's countless other people that I want to say, but those were people. El Haj Malik El Shabazz, I have to sit down at his feet, because when I was in the Organization of Afro-American Unity, he made it clear that you're not deep unless you could break it down so that a 5-year-old can understand you. You know, trying to use prodigious words and impress everybody on your PhD is not going to reach the grassroots. And the grassroots is where we need to be. And so I want to just say immediately to those people, there's hundreds of more people that we've read, but those are people that who are alive, who are in my life. Okay, and I have to do shout outs to Mfundishi, the first Mfundishi here, Mfundishi Maasi. I have to give credit since I'm the 4th Mfundishi in line. And I'm honored that also, Brother Bobby, you were there when they named me Mfundishi. And thank you for coming out and sharing that information with me, So let me pass the mic on.
As a maker of the sacred sa, which we call the joyari, or these emblems of culture, I've been taught by the Spirit, because when you deal with symbols every day, the symbols of the sa.neter, they begin to speak to you. I know that sounds spooky to some people, but when you're in the spiritual life, you have experiences that you really cannot articulate in English. It's a very poor language to express what you are going through. And so because even when I went to Kemet the first time, I already knew the place, because I learned how to let my ba move, because the ba can move. You don't have to wait until you die. And that's why I want to mention that the Pertem Heru, the Rayu in Pertem Heru and Ger, chapters of Coming Forth Today from Night, so-called Egyptian Book of the Dead, is not just a book for the afterlife. It's a book filled with rituals that you do right while you're alive, when you have to experience the Osirian drama of coming into knowledge, which a lot of us are going through without it being a formal ritual. As long as you touch this legacy, you begin your re-initiation, because we've all been here before. We're just continuing a process that was interrupted by some barbarians from the north of our land. So this is my way of giving account and giving credit to those who have guided me. And I've read just a lot of books on ancient Kemet. And one of the things I will tell students, don't allow your anxiety to get to you. Get off the soapbox. Stop trying to convince your grandmother, your father, your mother, because they're going to not like it. Be very kind to them as you come into this knowledge. Show them that your claim to this legacy has put your ego under reins, that you're not going to go past them and disrespect them because you now have seen some knowledge, got some knowledge. And you're going to want to read all the books. You're going to be very anxious because you're going to be upset that you went to your PhD, your master's degree, and know nothing about this legacy. So take your time, pace yourself, because you've got eternity to get this. All right? Hotep.
Hotep.
Well, like Baba Heru, I grew up in the South. I'm a Gullah Geechee Nation person. I grew up in a literal African village that looked like, functioned like any village you find in West Africa, Central Africa today, a place called Georgetown, South Carolina. But I was honored to have seen him just before he passed, my great-grandfather, who was a Tutsi man. And he was among the last sold into the slave market in Georgetown as a little boy, and his brother and his mom. So I know my lineage go back to Nile Valley genetically through this man. And so we call him Pajo. And he's the very special spirit that moves me and a lot that I do. But in leaving and talking, I remember talking to my grandma, who was a fetish priest, traditional priestess, a healer. We call them the root women down there. She was Miss Pigeon. She was the root woman. And I remember asking one day where we was from, because I didn't know about Africa. I knew she was going to tell us which plantation, what slavery. And she didn't read or write English. And I remember she said, boy, they tell me, Yama, we be from a place called Africa. I was 16. And on this village and a plantation in the woods of South Carolina, that kind of blew me away, because then I got on this journey to figure out, how am I from Africa? We knew Padjo was from Africa. My grandfather, who was my first major influence, who was my primary teacher, was the head of the Prince Hall Masonic Lodge there. He was the head of the Knights of Pythias and the Odd Fellows, as well as being a licensed minister in St. Anne's Baptist Church. They call him Captain Man, and then that's his nickname, Captain Man, because he was the captain and he was the man and the leader of our community. Those were the people that sent me on my journey, along with my magnificent and beautiful mom, Miss Ning, we called her. And she was the one that brought me to New York in 1963 to meet a man I saw on television. A man people would know later as Alhaj Malik El-Shabazz. I knew him then as Malcolm X when we met in 1963. And he shook up my soul, like Muhammad Ali said. That man just, in a one conversation session on education and why I needed to get an education and use it as a tool to help our people. Then I would meet later his sister Ella, who was an extraordinary teacher, persons of the Societies of Secret herself. His aunt Sarah, who most people have never heard of, but this is one of the women that created the phenomena we know as Malcolm X. And then I would meet Dr. Yosef Ben Yakinen and Professor Simmons in 1967. Then I would meet Dr. Leonard Jeffries in 1969, Dr. Asa Hilliard, Dr. Theophilo Banger, Brother Ankmi Ra. Me and Ra and Theophile and Tony, we formed something along with Dr. Francis Cresswell called the Kimware Science Consortium to deal with the melanin question, but the melanin question took us back to Kemet. And that's when you see the translation of the piece dealing with the three major, looking at the pyramid text, the coffin text, the Book of the Coming Forth, looking at the Genesis story aspect. We did that work back then. And those teachers, along with Jay Carruthers, Asa Hilliard, so many more, Shekanta Dia, Dr. Malana Karanga, and who has done great work that sometimes gets so overlooked, and many, many more sisters and brothers, Shashi McIntyre, that we studied under, me and Brother Reggie as students under these people. And so they all influence us. And I cannot leave out my first voodoo teacher, Rulux Mirlin, who is now an ancestor, or the president of Chad, Tumpo Bye-Bye, who's now an ancestor, or Reggie, the old man who first come to take me and Doc out, but decided we were his children, Bafo Akutu, who was the linguist for 3 Santahinis, and then my mama, spiritual mother, who just joined the ancestors, Nana Fuasa. And so these people all guide us. And my last one I would mention, and this is multiple more, like I know most of us have multiple teachers over time. He was the leader of the Ga. His name was Niamugi Ga Mancha, who was the first one that introduced me to the Ga people of Ghana in the inner sanctum, showing me that they still worship Kefra, and they still worship Asar as their primary deities in the 12-stool tribe of the Ga nation. And you'll see Kemet all over West Africa in the secret societies and the sacred places.
Oh, don't forget to remind them your I should say your entry into the Rayu Imperatum through the judgment scene. And
oh, yes, absolutely. When I met my teacher, Baba Heru, I didn't know this was at City College when we were beginning the discussions on ASCAC, and he introduced me to the judgment scene and what it meant. And anybody ever watched my lectures, when I'm dealing with I'm always, that whole understanding came from Baba Heru. So the teachers, and then I met Baba Mfundishi. I don't know if you remember, he was still Brother Hassan back in those days. And this brilliant mind, it was your martial arts aspects I was interested. Most people don't know that Brother Mfundishi is one of the world's top martial artists, okay? And watching his spiritual growth as I'm chasing behind his spiritual growth through the decades. But the greatest teacher, because I went to Kemet with Dr. Ben on a couple of occasions, but I once went to Kemet without Dr. Ben. I once went to Kemet without an airplane, and I'll leave that at that.
I just want to say, how come no more monkeys are turning into people?
Thank you, brother.
Why has it stopped?
Yesterday.
Why has it stopped? So I just need to say, there are some evolutionary changes where adaptation to climates, adaptation to new foods, adaptation to geographics, take place. But we came here as humans, and we are still here as humans. The Twa say we are the first humans on this planet. And the Twa, the Anu people, the short Twa, Sankoi, Khoi, say we were born in a luminous egg on top of the mountain of the moon. And we populated the planet. Okay, so not only they're the first Africans, they're the first in Asia, they're the first in Europe, the first in North America, first in South America. So we are Africans. And so I just would like to say that. We've evolved mentally and spiritually, and in some cases we've regressed.
I agree 100% with Baba Mfundishi. And that first manifestation was the people we call the Twa people, the little people of Central Africa, where I'll be in about 3 weeks with them in the Congo. So they're like Mfundishi says, if we were transitioning from monkeys, there would be some stages of that transitioning still going on today. They've never had any proof of such thing. That is an illusion about the Neanderthal trying to find a way to describe how he came into being. And so it has nothing to do with God having a human experience. And if you look in every African language, you find that either the prefix or the suffix that means person, person's place or thing have the name of their divinity on it, with saying that I am an expression or an extension of the divinity.
And let me just, in the language, if we look at the language of Madu Necher, whenever we talked about divinity, we talk about Necher, or the Necheru, or the Nechert. And the preposition that goes before that is in Necher. When we talk about things, animals, we use to or towards. But when we talk about the Remech or the Kemetu, we also use the word in. So the ancient Kemetu clearly understood that we were divinity, and that we are spiritual beings having a divine human experience. And so that needs to be, we need to understand it. But most people leave the word divine out. We are divine spiritual beings having a divine human experience. Most people have fallen from their divinity, and that's why they want to come from something else.
I love it too. But that's dealing with our earth beginnings. But our ancestors have a cosmology that traces our origin to the stars. Now that may sound like spooky to some people, because but why else do they identify our first earth mother, or Set or Ast, who they now call in the Greek vernacular Isis, with the star Seperet, which exists in the constellation of Anpu, they call Canis Major? Why else do they trace the beginnings of our father, the stellar home of our father Asar, to the constellation of Sa, known as Orion today? Right. So again, we have got to look at that. What is our star beginnings? Because we come with the star all inside of us. We call it these miniature suns inside of us. We call it Kamur, what they now call melanin, the great dark. Some say the great black. And that's the reason why people say, well, what color are you? Oh, I'm a Kamurian. You see, we use our terms to describe who we are, what we look like. I don't like using English words to describe us. And I think we have to get off. I know we've come a long way. We've come past what we call nigger, Negro, black, Afro this, Afro that, all hyphenated. But we are a people who have a star origin, and we came here, like all of us, to go through an initiation of earth life. And so that's, I wanted to add that.
No, we can't stop there. Baba just took them, Reggie. I'll take just 2 minutes on it. Yes. But Baba just took us to a space and a place on the spiritual plane that you got to just take to the next level. I'm going to do like Malcolm says, and for this, I'm going to break it down on another little level. Now, each of us, to my brothers and sisters listening outside, each of us represents the best of the genes of our ancestors, the latest version of those genes, and the highest tech model of those genes. each of those genes is not only built up off of the carrot and the lettuce and the tomato and the things we eat on earth, but they're also fueled every morning with the very energy from all of the stars, the suns in the universe. We are absorbing light energy that has taken 1 billion years to reach us. That's what makes us every and all things at once, including all that exists in the universe that comes as light energy form. Just wanted to drop that up in there.
Well, I think that's necessary.
Well, you know, we have one of the teachers here right now, one of the younger teachers, the scholars coming up, that that believes in evolution. And I want to ask you, Brother Reggie, what do you mean when you teach evolution? What is evolution to you?
Myself as a scientist, right? The Amara Squad is a scientist. We see things like proteins, right? We see things like when you start talking about stardust, that may be in the stuff that created proteins and amino acids. But we see that we're part of proteins, we're part of amino acids, they have qualities, right? And that we see that that we are no different as human beings than any other of the other organisms that basically evolved. That is, but we use both sciences, we use both sides. So it's not like we separate, but we actually see science. We can go into the museum and we could track all these other species evolving. So,
Brother Reggie is right. It's like Brother Mfundishi said. You know, Dr. Asa Hilliard said once, I said, Brother Small, we talk about episodes when we really should be talking about epic. Okay. So our total existence, which has no beginning, is part of the great epic. All of the other things that we try to explain that happens at different times are the episodes as they're experienced in different times by different manifestations of ourselves. Everything in existence is the one thing. Now, the Ewe people of West Africa refer to this whole thing as Sogbe Lisa. What Sogbe Lisa means is that we are the totality of creation itself, that we are every and all things at once. There is only divinity. Nothing else exists except the one thing. And all of us are simply an expression of some certain essence of aspects of that one thing. But even being that, we understand that we are part of that totality. And the thing that we call the human being is the closest thing to the replication of that divinity of any of the other ever evolved aspects of the divinity. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I just want to just say this here. In terms of those various cosmologies, I just want to just kind of clean up what Reggie said, what he said he thought I said. We talked about the cosmology of Anu, the cosmology of Het-Ka-Ptah, the cosmology of Kemenu, and the cosmology of Waset. These all represents one thought being expressed in different ways. It's like watching a car accident, and we're at 4 different corners. All of us saw the accident, so we know creation came into existence. But I was standing over here, and I said, well, you know, there was a wind, and it blew a rock out there, and he had to swerve. But you didn't see the rock. You said, no, he spoke it into existence. Another person said, no, he spit forth, and it came into existence. But we all know that the creation started at a specific time, and we had different ways of expressing that one. So in ancient Kemet, we were not arguing about. All of us knew that the elements, water, earth, fire, air, all came forth from the consciousness of one. And like Baba just mentioned, is that there is only one. All of us are one. And we understand we're an expression of that one. And in ancient Kemet, they were very clear. And let me just say this about science, Brother Reggie. Science is spirituality that you can touch, feel, measure. Spirituality is science way beyond that you cannot touch, feel, or touch, but you can still see its end results. I want to go back to what we said before. We are the original people. And I need to say here, if somebody examines the DNA in a meteorite, you will find that that DNA is very close to human DNA. So I want to say that all life comes from space. We are in space. It didn't mean that the Creator sent us here first to Earth. He could have sent us to other places, okay? We are just an extension of that. So to answer that question, brother, yes, there are other beings, spiritual, divine beings in the universe who are our cousins. Because we all, remember, there's only the one. There's only the one. But now in terms of writing it in the glyphs, we understood that we were the one. So if you look at the pyramid text, we talk about we come from Sirius A. We talk about inside of Sahu's sword, who they call Orion, at the tip of his sword, in the pyramid text it says, we come from there. Our Ra, sun, comes from there. And now scientists are finding out that that is not a star. That's a nebula, which creates stars. So our ancestors were clear about star travel, space travel, other life forms. And at no time did we try to make believe we were the only ones. We tried to say we are connected to all that there is.
Okay. That's powerful right there. Now, in the mental netta, I was watching the glyphs and I came across something where they were showing like little crafts. I don't know if that's
no.
Okay, that's false. All right, go ahead, Papa. Add on to that.
You know, we have to realize that there are some young elders coming among us, and there's one young brother, I would call him a prince. He must be in his early 20s. They refer to him as Pharaoh, young Pharaoh.
Yes, young Pharaoh.
What he has to say about the origin of souls, to me, resonates with me in terms of how, as we journey, we pick up the influences of different energies and stars in the universe. And so we come here with that energy in us, you see. So I'd like to also point out that we have to look at this knowledge is like a mine. You got to come to it with a pick and a shovel and find what resonates with your spirit and go with that. Because there's so much to learn about our legacy. But I would say I want you to check what that young brother has to say. Mfundishi, do you know this young brother? His name is called Pharaoh Allah, young Pharaoh.
Young Pharaoh Allah.
And you know, that's one thing that that we elders have to get with. We have to look at what the young people are saying, because some of them come here ready, you know, and like my two brothers right here, you know, and they, of course, were touched by Mfundishi in their development and others, and now they are now doing what we all really should be doing. They're gardening now. As a matter of fact, they prepare some of the most fantastic food for me every so often, you know, Kepirka and Ba and Ra. You brothers, you are my teachers too. Because I always tell people I can have a class with about 20 people, but they only got one teacher, and I've got 20.
That's absolutely.
Hotep, let's be real. This is one person's story trying to legitimize their existence in history. And they need to start somewhere. We know that they came from Canaan, where African people were, who are the same Kushites who are in ancient Kush and Kemet. And so if they came into Kemet, and if they came into Kemet, let me say this, they came late. They came during the third golden age. So I need to be real with this. The third golden age. That means we had two glorious golden ages, more than 2,000 years of civilization in Kemet before there was such thing as a Hebrew.
1840 was it, around that time?
Yes, you know. Yeah. So the pyramids was already 1,500 years old. That's 1,500 years. So no, they did not build no pyramids. They had nothing to do with it. In terms of, there is no mention of slavery or bondage of anybody in ancient Kemet, because Ma'at, was the theme.
Truth, justice, righteousness, reciprocity, balance, harmony, and order.
Yes. Okay. Now there are prisoners of war, you know, but a person could work that off. You weren't in a permanent situation. And if somebody came in non-African and stayed as long as they claimed, they would have left Africans. Now there have been exodus out of when Akhenaten was died. Those people who were following the Aten did not come back to Amun. They left. So that was an exodus, but nobody was trying to kill them. They just left. So we need to have that. No army came after them. And in fact, how could you kill the greatest army in the world and not be attacked by anybody else? That would have been stupid right there. That should have been the end of ancient Kemet. And we also have to understand that Brother Heru Samaj mentioned about Israel. The first time we hear that is in the so-called Third Golden Age, and the ancient Kushites came and saved them from extermination. Right, Tahaka. So we have to understand that the Hebrews owe ancient Kemet a debt.
A big debt.
Of their existence. And I need to say this.
Isaiah, they proclaimed it.
Yes, and all of Hebrew doctrine come out of ancient Kemet. We need to be clear that.
Say that again?
All the science that they have that makes any sense comes out of Kemet, because they got some science that doesn't make any sense. Comes out of ancient Kemet. So we are one people. I don't know why they would be fighting us. They have the right to believe in whatever they want, but their origins is ancient Kemet. So we're not fighting with the Hebrew. They're our brothers, but they're just ignoring their parents.
And it's against African principle, against Ma'at, not to acknowledge who gave birth to your systems. When I was here last and I was wearing white, somebody texted, why do we all have to dress like the Pope? Right. Whatever the Pope wears, he got from us. He copies everything from us anyway. And I told the brother, I said, when you see me dressed, it's because people who look like me make my garments. I design them and they make them up. And so more of us need to do that instead of taking orders from 7th Avenue about what fashion is supposed to be, walking around wearing the names of slave masters on our chest, feet and behind, and feeling proud, and standing in line to buy their names, which we used to get free with hot irons and brands years and years ago. So again, when they talk about an exodus, no, it was like we were giving birth. And why do they call themselves chosen? You were chosen to spread the word of your African teachers around the world. However, you made some errors by trying to make the astronomical mythology into a history that never was. But Mfundishi, we need to talk about during the first dynasty, during the beginning of the 18th dynasty, when Nefertari, Hermes, and his when
they kicked the Hyksos.
Yeah, they kicked the Hyksos. The Hekshassu, known now also as Hyksos, didn't some of the it seems as if some of the Hebrews who were already there had joined with them because they had the same type of lifestyle as sheep herders.
Right.
Right. You want to expand on that a little bit, my brother?
Just a little bit, yes. At the end of the second golden age, a lot of foreigners came into the Delta region and began to filter in. Later, when these foreign invaders came, the people in the Delta, it was like they were inside the house and opened the door for the invasion. And they were able to conquer Kemet because we had trusted in, some of these people that come into Kemet. So if those are the Hebrews that they're talking about, y'all should be ashamed instead of boasting about that. And let me just say this. When they came in, they had access to all the Neteru, and they only chose Set.
That's right.
They only chose Set. So they came in with the chariot. We made the chariot stronger, swifter, and quicker, and then kicked their behinds with their own weapons to start the so-called 17th, 18th dynasty.
You want us going on that, my brother?
Just to go further on the history, when we drove the Hyksos out, we spread our borders to Greece, to Turkey, to the Black Sea Rim, to what is now Persia and all of Tigris Euphrates. And we reside there as authority for centuries. So during the time period, they said they were moving about. They were moving about in a land under an authority already established by Kemet.
And when we speak about a temple that was built, who helped you to build your temple? There was a nation of temples in the Nile Valley, and now you are going to one little wall and swearing that this was built by the shepherds. The shepherds asked us to come and help them, and as a matter of fact, didn't we give them some gold to make the?
Let's help. I wasn't rude the other day when I had a conversation with one of our children, but if you were given that land, why are you here even having dialogue? Why not buy a plane ticket and go to that land? But you answered that question. But there was a man named Menachem Begin, and there was the one with the patch over his eyes, the general. What's his name? Moshe Dayan. They led, Moshe Dayan always fancied himself an archaeologist. And so much of what is in the museum in Tel Aviv, if you go to the Museum of Tel Aviv and just look at what was bought out of the land there, it's all Kemetic images. All of it. I'm talking about all of it, going back even before the dates you give for your own Exodus. It is in the museum in Tel Aviv. These things were excavated, temple walls, figures of the pharaohs and of our queens, and symbols of all of our neters are all in the museum at Tel Aviv. That is pre-Hebrew Israelite tradition.
So it's a problem when your student turns against you and pretend that you didn't exist. How can a religion exist that's supposed to say that God is love based upon the hatred of the very people that gave you everything you've got? You were chosen to carry the good news, but now you're acting as if you got the only revelation. That's disrespect of African law, which means you got to respect your elders, respect those who gave you what you got. But all we see is this constant pretense that you got it from out of the sky, some revelation, when it's actually a lot of plagiarism and a lot of distortion of cosmology into a history.
We are going to have a conference. Did the Exodus occur? So the younger generation is building a chronology to absolutely show from all of the golden ages, or at least definitely from the second golden age to the third golden age, right? And the intermediate periods, that the Exodus did not occur, could not occur as supported, as told by the Bible and supported by history. Some of the things that's going to come out before that is that their own patriarchs, Abraham, or Ha-Eber as they call him, that and Joseph, as he is called, right, as they are called, right? But we're talking about the peoples that they represent, right? That prior to even coming into Kemet, they spoke the Medu-Neter. It's even in their own Bible, because they're having conversations with people who speak Medu-Neter, who don't speak their language, and then they come inside ancient Kemet, and then they speak the Medu-Neter. And they go about their lives in another culture, right? But if you do not read that book, right? If you do not read that book, you can't even see the contradictions, because it's all in belief. But even in their own book, they tell the truth. One of the things that's coming out is that, right, in their those things where we will have to look at our own history to see what were the changes necessary for us to, in fact, change our government to withstand the invasions. This whole thing about the Delta, people say, well, if the Delta was the most fertile, why didn't we settle there? Because it was the most easiest to be attacked. So what we did is we went further south to our ancestors so that we could use the whole of Africa to defend ourselves, which we did, and we were successful for many, many years.
If the Hebrews believe that somebody did something to them in Kemet and they can record it, then it was their own people who did this. Let me say this. Any enslavement that took place in Kemet took place during the Hyksos occupation.
That's right.
So these Hebrews, the things that they think happened to them by their own people, not by the Africans who were there. At that time, the Africans were out of power, and the Hebrews did not venture up south. They stayed in the Delta region in the lower part, and so that means that they were victims of the Hyksos who were rulers who was just like they were. And so when the Hyksos got kicked out, they probably left with them.
And you took your reparations, because I thought that somewhere in the book they were told to borrow each one from your neighbor before they left. So they took their reparations at the same time. You see, if you come in as a family of about 70 people and you go out with hundreds of thousands, it must mean that the people that you came among were very hospitable, very loving, very fair. And because we were into Ma'at. So it's very difficult to comprehend why you will not give honor and credit to your mothers and fathers and your teachers who taught you all that you really know. This is something that always boggles my mind.
As a student of the Wolomos of the Ga Adangbe people of Ghana, I'm known as Niahito Okrapong, and I am an initiate in that system. And in that system, we celebrate every summer in July going into August something called Homowa. And during Homowa, all loud noise is silent. The drums is silent. This is our cleansing period. This is our renewal period. And the first thing that's done on the first days of Homowa, we go to a certain part of Accra and we dig this red clay mud that looks like blood, and we paint it over the doors of all of our houses so that the evil spirits will not stop therein. This celebration is older than the so-called Hebrews. And the deities that set up in the house to receive the good spirit is the deity of Kefera and the deity of Asar. I'm talking West African Ghana. Just to drop that, like brother says, I'm just saying there are things people need to pay attention to.
Okay. So let the Hebrews present, whatever they want to. We're their parents, and they have strayed away, and if they want to go in that direction, they have the right to do that. People have the right to be crazy.
All right. So let's go we're just gonna I just want to bring this brother in who loves and respects you, and he goes by the name of Unc.
I'd like to say Raw Squad Up and Black African Power to the respected elders on the panel. And Professor Smalls, you're my favorite. We get to pick our favorite. I got Dr. Oya on the phone from Raw Squad and Brother Ujao on the phone. He's a linguist. What I really want to know is, what is the process in Africa, right, when the elders that you respect and love have information that has become outdated and just wrong on certain subjects, but the majority of information is all wise and exact? What is the process when the next generation who has studied subject matter that elders have not, because the information wasn't even available to the elders? What is our process for getting that done? Because it's very, very important for the whole world to see how African people handle natural phenomenon as this. And it's called when the older generation meets the younger generation, who love and respect them, who stand on their shoulders absolutely and will knock heads off for them, have information that the elders never had a chance to really study. How do we bring that forward without looking disrespectful to our elders? Because I love all y'all, right? And I will defend y'all to the bitter end. What do we do and how do we do that? Because that's what we need to do. Because now the rubber is starting to meet the road, and I really love this. Because now is our chance, right, to understand what will history say about the Amara Squad? What will history say about James Smalls? What will history say about Mfundishi and the other elders? What will they say? This is important for us to actually sit down and have a thorough discussion on evolution. Is evolution an African idea? Mfundishi, he reads Meta-Nature. He understands what Kemet is. He understands that Kemet is a dung beetle. But what he does not understand is that Europeans, and they study of evolution, they absolutely use dung beetles to understand evolution. So how is it that white people can look at dung beetles and understand evolution? How is it that Charles Darwin can just simply look at the islands and the diversity of animals on it and say, well, natural forces on Earth transform living organisms, but the Nile Valley Africans that date back to 190,000 years, looking at the same thing, can't come up with a process that is just as intelligent. We're going to have this conversation, right, because we love each other, and the Armor Squad absolutely stands on the shoulders of their elders. How do we do this? We need to know. We need to get it in.
You started by doing it the same way the elders did it and the way the elders before they did it. You put it in scholarship, you write it, you create a book, you teach from it, you educate it, and you be able to defend that book. So once you put it into a scholarly approach, you put it into your journals, I'm not talking about necessarily European journals, but you put it into a journal and you discuss it. And it has to become a proven fact. You have to be able to defend it. You don't just say, we don't know what we're not ready for. Write it down. Put it into a scholarly work. You've seen my work. It's in a scholarly work. It's being taught in a university as well as in the community. You have to be able to do the same thing. You have to teach it, you have to write it, and then you have to defend it. It's not an idea that we're not ready for it. If you have some information, put it in the book, put it out there, put it professionally, make it scholarly. You don't have to cuss nobody out. You have to just write it and then defend it. That's one way. That's how all scholars do their work. That's how it's been done in ancient Kemet. And ancient Kemet, we wrote it on the wall so that you can examine it.
And I'd like to suggest, if we're going to sit down to come to consensus on certain points in our legacy, I would suggest that all of us need to get into an internal cleansing before we even sit down, because there's so much acidity, there's so much obesity, there's so much toxicity in our very bellies that we ought to check out the Mesu Heru on the temple walls, in the tombs of our ancestors, where we preserved organs in order to teach us something about life. The lungs, the small intestines, the liver, the large intestines, all of these things have to be well taken care of. And if we're eating a bunch of garbage, when we sit down, we're going to end up doing what we always do, arguing with each other, because acid has a way of coming out through the mouth in terms of what we say. So we have to become more, what should I say, as Supernova said, we have to go to the green. We have to get the green face of Asar. We have to cleanse our temples in order for us to sit down and agree, because right now the level of acidity, the way we are chopping each other up, it gives a credence to Willie Lynch, even though that was just a story, you know. So we really have to clean up. But Marcus Garvey said that before he would give a speech, he would take an enema. People are not aware of that. Now, I know brothers say, we don't want nothing up there, but listen, some of us really, there's some of us out on the street there calling our brothers and sisters from Africa by some terrible names, calling women by some terrible names. All that to me is just toxicity. And we need to go to Mama Pill. We need to go to Queen Afua, Dr. Sabi, and clean ourselves out, because we cannot raise Ma'at if we are not Ma'at within our bellies, because if you're constipated in the behind, you will definitely be constipated in the mind. So we really got to get our cleansing on. And that's and that's one of the reasons why I'm so happy to see people like Priscilla and Preston, who are my publicists, working in a lot in Brooklyn to make it into a garden, right? Along with so many of your brothers who are now actually doing what we used to do in the Nile Valley. Because when you look at this ancient culture, it was created by people with mud between their toes and dirt under their fingernails. Isn't that so, Mfundishi? That during the time when we were not working in the fields, when the inundation was so great, it took out all the markers. We went to the higher places and we worked on the temples. This was not the work of slaves. This was work of some prisoners of war, but mainly people who were working every day in the fields. They were now free to work on the temples and to do, huh?
Yes, sir.
And it was, as you say, community. That's right. Our brother out in the Temple of Anu, he calls it communion. We need to commune again.
Brother and the squad, you've heard me said many, many times, the answer to your question is you must be instructed and informed by the wisdom of your ancestors. You must be instructed and informed by the wisdom of your ancestors. Every one of the Neterus is a quality and attribute that we, through our ancestors, have understood to be a part of the personality and the character of the totality of divinity. I know the system best in the Yoruba tradition, which is the same system. We don't call it Neteru, we call them the Orisha. And I will just take 3 of them to show you your questions. I use those 3 all the time because they're phenomenal. I am a son and a priest of Oya. And Oya represents change in process, change of the human spirit and the human character that comes as a result of Shango having come into being in their character, meaning that they've developed a courage, they've developed a strength, a fortitude and character that want to change itself to a higher, better, greater self. And once that Shango have arrived within the mind of the human being, within the spirit of the human being, that Shango must marry the Oya in the spirit of the human being, the force for change and process, because you now accept and realize that I want to change my character for the better. Now, Oya must then practice metaphorically polyandry, and she must marry Ogun, the god of iron, the god of war, which symbolize transformation as a result of Ra, fire, that cause one to change themselves to a point that you transform yourself into the higher being that was realized by the aspiration of Shango, having gone through the process of the Neta Oya. And so that's what I call being instructed and being informed by our ancestors. And when it comes to elders, no matter what, you are obligated to submit to the feats of the elders. And if you want to show something different, you do it in the greatest humility possible, because that thing that's called humility is one of the most powerful netters that our ancestors discerned. And so that's the route.
You just mentioned something, polyandry. This mean a woman having more than one husband?
Yes.
Well, right now, this polyandry has been going on here among us who have been brought over here and enslaved, that something very curious is happening. Our beloved women have given their souls to a man who is a Messiah who doesn't look like them. And I'm really worried about that, because you give me your body and you say you love me, but you give your soul to someone in your church who don't look like me. And sometimes in your ecstasy, in your passionate ecstasy, you may even call his name. And I know that his name goes with that picture that Michelangelo drew of his cousin. And I'm really concerned about that. How would we feel? How would you feel, beloved sisters, if we went to church and God, who you worship, did not have a son but a daughter, and that daughter was shown in the image in which the present son is shown, and we as African men are sitting up there worshiping her and singing hymns to her and giving our souls to her, and she don't look like you? Sisters, how would you feel? I think the time has come for us to stop this polygamy, this polyandrous affair with someone who don't look like your husband. And then we take our children to sit up there to worship a Messiah who don't look like their daddy. No wonder we are all messed up. No wonder we all seem to have a little craziness about us, because you teach a child the way they should go, and when they are old, they will not depart from it. And that's exactly what has been happening. I just had to say that on polyandry, brother, because when we talk about polygamy, everybody starts frothing at the mouth. Meanwhile, you're having a polygamous affair with a
polyandric affair with the spirit of the white man.
Now, you see, I wanted to be diplomatic.
I appreciate what y'all said, and humility is a very, very powerful weapon. But what I have to say is that the Amara Squad is bringing absolutely nothing brand new to the table when it comes to this subject. And as a matter of fact, right, I just want to refer you to some works that y'all speak of that absolutely teaches evolution. And so we come to the great thinker, right, Cheikh Diop. Read his work, Civilization and Barbarism, right? He absolutely talks about evolution. Absolutely. And he also talks about the Egyptians as being an evolutionary civilization. Dr. Ben's work, Africa, Mother of Western Civilization. This is an evolutionary work on evolution. He absolutely talks about all the fossils and all our ancestors that you all love, called Degnesh. I know y'all love Degnesh. Her name in Amharic is marvelous. But Degnesh is not a Homo sapiens sapien. Degnesh is an Australopithecus. But she's still an African. Come to the work of Echoes of the Darkland. Read chapter 1, right? Race and Human Origin by Charles Fitch, right? Absolutely. Come to the work Man, God, and Civilization by John Jackson. Absolutely. Chapters 2 and 3. Factors and Evidence on Evolution, right? Read the great works, The General History of Africa, Methodology in African Prehistory, with Theophile Bang and Cheikh Diop and Walter Robinson. They were superstars here. They absolutely taught evolution. So evolution is really a Nile Valley thing. I say again, Kepeda, dung beetle, right, is evolution. So at the end of the day, all I'm going to do is offer back to you the same books you told me to read. And the Amara Squad, we already have written documentation, right, on our stands. So I'll be sending each one of y'all books. Professor James Smalls already know I got a packet set up for him, right? I love y'all. I really, really appreciate y'all. But I give back to you what you gave to me. Amara Squad up. And
he said, don't run yet. Don't run yet, but you ain't going to be able to speak no more. But just listen now. Don't run.
You know, contained within evolution is what? Revolution.
Right.
To evolve, everything evolve every minute, every second of the time. But when we're not talking about that. Of course we're evolving in the Nile Valley. But there is no scientific proof that apes and humans are the same evolutionary track. They have a lot of similarities. Hell, we've got similarities to the tiger. At what stage you're going to say we evolved from the tiger into human? What we're saying when that the evolution, the thing that they call a monkey, evolved from divinity, just like we, the thing called a human, evolved. Everything in nature have, how do you say, each other. Let me show you what I'm saying. I can eat pork. I can eat beef. I can eat fish. I can eat greens. I can eat fruit and replace myself. I can eat grains. I can eat anything in nature and replace myself. That means everything in nature is made up of the same everything that I'm made up of. But we are made up as different manifestations or different essence demonstration of the totality of beingness. And do not confuse that with the white man's notion of evolution with our notion of evolving. We are evolving in this room as we are learning new things from one another. It is causing our consciousness to create a synthesis that evolve us to another level of understanding.
If I may...
All right, good. No more questions.
If I may, I want to...
We gotta have a build amongst each other, though.
Give thanks.
Build on Kemet.
If I will, I want to introduce this book written by Mark Heru, He lives in Washington, D.C. It's called Smai Tawi. He wrote the book Ma'at Kemetic Soulism about 10 years ago. I wrote the introduction to that book. And he called me and says, Bob, I'm going to write another book. I said, you can't write any book unless it's called Smai Tawi. He said, well, what do you know about Smai Tawi? I said, well, I'm a Smai Taoist, my brother. He said, well, I want you to write the 65-page introduction. I said, I'm not going to write your book for you, my brother, but I'll give you a couple of pages, which I did in this book, and I'm glad that my name is not too prominent on the cover, because I told him, well, I'll be in the cell next to you, brother, because this book takes no prisoners. It's called Smai Tawi, and I'm wearing the emblem, as you can see on my upper chest here, I'm wearing the emblem of Smai Tawi.
How much the book go for?
It goes for $49, but I'm giving them for $45. But it's got about 800 and some odd pages. And he writes in a style called free writing, so like free jazz, you know, but it is one of the deepest books I've ever read. And every day I discover, because I'm going through it looking for typos and stuff like that, I'm helping him to re-edit it so that when we get the next edition, it will be more thorough. But I want to stress our need to tap into Smai Tawi. We speak about Kemet, and we need to, because that's our stone library. That's where so much was preserved, because our ancestors chose a place where things were whispered from mouth to ear in the river country, at the headwaters of the Nile, filtered down north, and was inscribed on temples of stone. But Smai Tawi, if you look at the throne that King Tut sat upon, you will see that the emblem of Smai Tawi is on all the thrones that the ancients sat on, the lotus and the papyrus. Blossoms knotted around the trachea and the lungs, symbolizing also the spinal column and the hip, the sacral region of the hip. That we need to get into the knowledge of Smai Tawi. What does it mean to be a Smai Taoist? Is it just about the unity of Upper and Lower Egypt? It has to do, again, as I said, and I'm going to repeat this over and over, it has to do with the unity of the masculine and the feminine. For instance, the Ankh is a symbol of Smai Tawi. And let me say to my 5% brothers, I love you, my brothers, but you know, women are more than the earth. They are heaven. And Dr. Ben taught us that. And the Ankh shows that Nut, she's on the top here, that's Nut. Down here is the earth. Earth is the male in our legacy, Geb. Not to say that the earth doesn't have a feminine part, that's a topsoil out of which the vegetation emerges. And this here, this is Shu. Okay, so the Ankh teaches our legacy, our cosmology of creation, showing that unity of heaven and earth brings about spirit. And this is the body that we live in. This is where our spirit lives. My brother?
So, before we ask you to kind of build amongst yourself on maybe various topics and kind of have a round table, first of all, our work is backed by literature. So, you mentioned the recent book on Smai Tawi. I want to mention Essays in Ancient Egyptian Studies by Jacob Carruthers, which is one of the books that was found, was written very early on that we used in ASCAC to kind of orientate ourselves, and it needs updating with current works, works of that you're thinking, right? So we need to continuously produce collective literature. A lot of times we produce literature by one particular author and his concepts, so we need to be able to add to the dialogue. This book you're probably all familiar with, Kemet in the African Worldview, and this has a number of authors. Dr. Ricketti's in here, Dr. John Henry Clark is in here, Malana Karenga here is in here, certainly Dr. Jacob Carruthers and others. So what I'm calling for is more collective work.
Well, you know, what you're asking for, as far as Brother Jacob Carruthers is concerned, is that he is one of the only ones that I know of our elders who consistently mentioned Tawi. In that book, that you just mentioned, Essays in Egyptian Studies, all he talks about is Tawi. And we need to begin to focus on the totality of the civilization, not just the northeastern section, but where it came from. Because each time we had an intermediate period, I'm sure that Mfundishi would bear this out, we reestablished the new foundation on the auspices of Ptah, time and time again. And so that is something that, that we need to remember. And every throne that our ancestors sat on had the emblem of the two regions, heaven and earth, masculine, feminine, in breath, out breath. That is Smai Tawi. Now we did it north and south. Now we are doing it east and west. We call it the principle of Sankofa, going back to get what we lost and reactualizing it again. Hotep.
Hotep, give it to Small.
Well, you know, just to talk about where because I know I got to go pick up my little baby in a little while. Where I'm at right now is working with Dr. Jeffries and Brother Taki on a piece called Happy. It's a documentary of the Happy, the River Nile, and what it was able to give us in our civilizing process on the occasion of us moving along that river. And so Dr. Jeffries and a number of others are involved in the project. But we're hoping, you know, to make this project, I think, you know, they did the other piece, Dr. Jeffries and Taki worked on a piece, the Tekanu and Nubian, and now we want to take it to another level. In about a month, I should be standing at the Temple of Karma in Sudan, and hopefully I will also get to the Great Mount, because they did open the Great Mount in Nubia in February for this new information, Zerubbabel. And so I've been granted permission that I can enter there. And so I'm trying to now go back south as deep as I can go. But we know that when we go south, you know, Brother Reggie, you introduced me to the Temple of the Gods, that book. And in that book, they have a photograph of a rock with an ankh carved in it. Not only is there an ankh carved in it, but their Ra is in the center of the upper portion of the ankh.
Question: how are we connected? Some of you have DNA directly from that Nile Valley region, right? Some of you have stories, folklore, family stories about where you come from, right? Whether it's true or not true, the fact of the matter that it's recorded that, yes, if I came from anywhere, I want to come from the Nile Valley. Prove to our people today, right, by going from the Nile Valley to the Congo, to the Niger, to Nigeria, to the Gold Coast, to what do you know about our travel from and the reasons why we traveled from Nile Valley and diffused to the world?
We appreciate the question. And how are Africans in the diaspora, not just America, in the diaspora, connected to the Nile Valley? That's, I believe, what the question you were asking. What we need to do is be able to understand the demographics of Africa, understand the enslavement of Africans and how we got to all of these different places, how we got to South America. There's more Africans in Brazil than any place else outside of the diaspora, okay? So we need to understand, how did Africans come to America? How did Africans come to the Caribbeans? How did Africans get in there? We came through different forms of enslavement. As Islam was waving its tail after 640, Kemet was sacked in 640 AD, see, the Common Era. Right, so now we need to understand that. 640, so there's no Islamic encroachment before that. 640 is when they conquered Egypt. They took the doctrines and they made the Africans write those doctrines and convert them into Arabic. There is no ancient Arabic writings before that. I need you to understand it. There is no Quran. There's no ancient Arabic writings before that. So now, as they converted these Africans, they gave them a choice. Join Amun-Ra today or be a Muslim. Many of our people joined Amun-Ra right away. Others were converted to Islam.
You mean died?
Right. Right, okay. So now,
there was actually a contract to validate what Brother Mfundishi said, between written by the general Abur al-As, who was the guy who was supposed to assassinate the Prophet a few years ago. Now he's the head of the army after the Prophet's death, with the Africans when he entered Kemet. And it said, either die or you accept our conditions, and our conditions is for you to say, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, give us a certain amount of barley, wheat, and gold every year. We'll move our army off and just leave a teacher here among you.
Okay, so you take that doctrine. So now these people are later now is birthing of what we call the Moors. And then the Moors travel across northern Africa. And it is the African converted Muslims that are to destroy Ghana, Songhai, and Mali, our great empire. So we need to understand that. It's under the guise of Islam. But it's Africans, the Arabs using us. Then we go into Europe in 711 and civilized Europe. But now, I need you to understand, the Muslims now are coming in waves. They're coming in waves. They're displacing the indigenous Africans. These Africans got to get out of Dodge. Ifa becomes an explosive spiritual system because those Africans who left the Nile Valley now go into Ifa. They go into the Congo. They go into Ghana. Okay? They're moving back and towards Tanzania. Okay? Now, and we need to understand that the Arabs introduced the slave trade to the Europeans.
That's right.
So we're talking about 400 or 500 years of European enslavement. We got to talk about over 1,400 years of Arab enslavement, Arabic Islamic enslavement.
They never, when people talk about reparations, they never mention the Arabs. And they owe us, well, look, they have colonized. You call yourself, well, this is an emerging African nation. What about Morocco? What about Algiers? What about all of these northern countries in Africa? How can we let them go because, assalamu alaikum, because, no. Something is wrong with that. Why do we keep on losing and not claiming what belongs to us as a people? So that's I know it's a rhetorical question, but we've got to look at that because we have got to bring these folks to pay back what they owe. Reparations starts with them, first of all. Then you deal with the Europeans.
Then I'll come back to Brother Mfundishi. Just to piggyback on what Brother Mfundishi was saying.
Veggie back.
Yes. Just to veggie back on what Baba Mfundishi was saying. And because I, studying that whole phase of history, when the invasion comes in the 600, no, let me go back. Go back to the invasion of the Hyksos. Hundreds of thousands of us move southwards. That's right. We come back and we take our land back. But then we have an invasion later of the Hittites. And thousands of us, hundreds of thousands of us move southward. And then we take our land back. Then we get a second Hittite invasion and we move southward. Everybody don't come back. The youngsters, the soldiers, the generals come back to the farmers and others who are there and bring the priests and the others and the leadership with them. Then we have the Assyrian invasion and the second Assyrian invasion and then the Persian invasion, then the second Persian invasion, then the Greek invasion, then the Roman invasion, and lastly the Arab invasion in 640. Through all of this, millions and millions of people move out of Nile Valley into what is now Sudan, Ethiopia, Somalia, Chad, Niger, Nigeria, Ghana, Cameroon, Congo, and other places. And they're moving westward in larger numbers than southward, because to go southward you have to go uphill into mountains. No fleeing people go up. They move on flat land, and they came right through the same Darfur that our people was running through to get out of Sudan this time around from Arab invasions. I just wanted to get that said. And the second piece is, in studying with some brothers and sisters from the continent at a seminar maybe 30 years ago at Princeton University, and many of the scholars came from home because they had researched how this process went, how the Arabs would come in with their European partners and their African Muslim partners, village after village, and says, we will be back in a month, we will be back in 2 months, we will be back in 2 weeks, we want 50 men, 100 women, da-da-da-da. And if you don't have them, we're going to take them. Now the people are forced not to sell their families or their subjects to take somebody else. And in many cases, the people that got taken was the refugees from the east, the refugees from the Nile Valley. That's why when you look at this, especially and particularly the African American population, because by the time we're getting to the West Coast in large numbers, the British has taken control of the system. And we end up coming here through the British system primarily. We are taller, we are browner than any other African population enslaved in this hemisphere. No one wants to deal with why is that phenomena so as it is. And so when we look at this, you will begin to see that many, many, many of the people who were enslaved and marched across the continent, you can see pictures after pictures of people in white robes and turban marching us with these wooden things from East Africa to West Africa. These are the people of Kemet that have been refugeed, that have been captured, and that have been sold into slavery on the West Coast. They didn't come from the West Coast. If you look at the population of the West Coast, these are very short, little people. That's not who we are. And remember, Reggie, Baba, what's his name, the linguist, Bafo Okotu. After we had gone to Ghana a number of times to visit with the Santahini, he pulled us aside and says, why do you stop here with us so often? Go north and find your people. You came from the east.
That's right.
This is one of the greatest linguists in Ghana telling us this, and that made us start going to Tamale, going to Paga, going to the places where the biggest slave market in West Africa was in the northern part of Ghana, taking the population coming from the east, who was the refugees after the 10th century when the Ottomans take over Kemet. They went into an ethnic cleansing because our resistance movement had been so fierce between the 640s and the 10th century. They just went into ethnic cleansing and started bringing Eastern European Serbs to replace us to work the land. And by the millions, we were pushed out into West Africa, where millions of us was captured and sold into slavery. Like I talk about my own great-grandfather, I know he come from the Ntora nation and the Bakongo nation. And if you look at the crown of the Ntora nation to today, they still have the uraeus and they have the vulture and the, there. Yes, sir, I know I got to go in 5 minutes.
What are the artifacts? I mean, some of you, you're
let me just give a
anthropologists, some of you
couple, then I'll
have
let y'all go.
scientific degrees.
Right.
What is the artifact?
If you go to the Yoruba land, they have obelisks all over Yoruba land. They have stone where they've inscribed with sa.neter. Johnson talks about this in his writing. Our teacher, Actionable, who was the head of the University of Ife, talks about this in his writing. If you go to Ghana, all of the Santahinis, the king of kings of the Asante nation, all wear an inverted pyramid over their chest with sa.neter on that inverted pyramid. And they say they come from the east. The same thing, of course, I mentioned earlier with the people of Ga. But let me go deeper. The Ewe say that the language they speak, we call them Ewe or Ewe, people of Togo and Eastern Ghana, they say the language they speak is sa.neter. And they tell the story in their folklore of how when they escaped from Kemet, how they brought one of the thrones of Kemet with them, and they had lost the throne in the Volta River and searched for 2 years and found it, and is now residing in the mountains of Togo. So there's so much stories that's told about our migration from Kemet, even today.
I need to say this. Many people ask, how come this thing is happening here in America? And that's exactly what you said, that when we were chased out of Kemet, with the coming of the Assyrians and the Persians and the Greeks, the Romans, the Arabs, we ran as far away from these barbarians as we could. We ended up on the northern section of a lot of these West African countries. So when they exhausted the population on the West Coast in terms of slaves, when those chiefs could not provoke any more wars to get prisoners that they could sell to the Europeans, they went inland, where Kemites who had resided in small villages in all of those West African countries were living, and they gathered them up. And that's the reason why the resurrection is starting here in the West, because we still remember, as Queen Afua says, we still remember.
That is the content. That's what I was building up. They said exactly what I was building up. So then, therefore, if you show Kemetic artifacts to indigenous Africans who are there today, they feel that that's somebody else's stuff. when you show those same artifacts to Africans here in the diaspora, we recognize that stuff. We feel it because it's our stuff. And so we have been displaced and brought here to America, and we'll even show that the Moors that were here were connected to ancient Kemet and were interfacing back and forth. There's Medu Neter found in the Grand Canyon, along the East Coast, all the way up to Canada. And so there was this communication back and forth. So the Africans now, as we regain our consciousness, as we regain our mind, as now we begin to read these glyphs, our consciousness is coming back. And we have the greatest, our memory is coming back because it's always been there. Now it's been joggled. And so Africans in America are almost leading this thrust of ancient Kemet back for Africans everywhere. But we're just championing it. It's not just ours. It belongs to all the Africans in the diaspora and on the continent. It's just that some of us are championing this movement.
You're an academic, right?
Hold on.
Let me get one more piece because I got to run out the door. But I can't respond to what was sent to me. But I just want to tell people, because when I say it, a lot of people go like, what's wrong with Brother Small? I am a member of Cornerstone Lodge number 37 of Prince Hall Grand Lodge in America. And I've lectured in the lodge, and I've lectured to the masters of the masters because they want to know how he got up in here. So let's call him up in the secret thing. I refuse to go alone, though. I'm not going to be GM James. So I take security with me, and they agree. Let him bring his people. But that is one of the venues on how our information is being used to run this nation. And in one of my research, I went back as far as to find tombs of Roman generals with all of the tools of the Masonic crafts on it, and there is no Britain yet to even create this. So they know who we are. The reason we were built here, I remember I was told very young, the reason a certain population was brought to North America, because they intended to reestablish Kemet in fact. And if you look at the work of Tony Browder, look at it more deeply. They brought the Kemetians here to help them recreate Kemet so that they could be at the zenith that they want to be at. They'll never get there spiritually, no matter how many temples we built for them. So I just wanted to say that. Now I'm going to meet my duty to my wife and to my children. I'm going to pick up my granddaughter Malaya from school so she won't crucify Grandpa if he gets there late.
All right, let me ask.
Love and blessings to my senior brothers. I am the junior elder sitting here, even though I may look like the older elder. I was shocked when I found out Mfundishi had me. So I am the junior elder, paying respects and honor and being humble to my elders and thanking them for their teachings and their example of how to live as a Kemetian being in this world. Peace and blessings.
Peace and blessings.
I appreciate the question again. First of all, I always give homage to Kush. I always say Kush Kemet. And because the information came through there from Kush. And Kush is the parent of ancient Kemet. And if they find, they go to, there was a incense burner that was found that existed about 300 to 500 years before Kemet came into existence. And all the paraphernalia of ancient Kemet is on that. That's wearing the white crown. Heru being the symbol of the rulership. Aset, the star Sirius, the black lion, the Pinmock, which later became Heru Imaketi. All of that comes from ancient Kush. But we also said that it's also in the interior of Africa. The reason why we spend so much time in ancient Kemet is because it's etched in stone. It's on the walls. It's not a feel-good thing. The temples are still there. The Mirkut is still there. The pyramids are still there. The bodies are still there. We can, like we said, the Hebrews can't produce nobody's body. We still got the Sahu. We got the bodies, the tombs, the statues are still in ancient Kemet. It's not in the Congo because it was in the rainforest. The materials we used there perished. And if people take their DNA tests, I heard the brother Amin Ra talk about DNA. If they take their DNA tests, they'll find out that the majority of Africans in America, their DNA will lead them not only to West Africa, but to East Africa. Even my own daughter took her DNA test. I know that my, descendant comes from Tanzania, East Africa. But our DNA shows a direct connection to East Africa. Almost everybody from West Africa is from East Africa. Like you have the Mandinka come from the Dinka. Talk about languages. Hausa also relates itself back to the Medu-Neter. And there's a pyramid in Niger that's older than the pyramids in ancient Kemet. So, we have to understand, all pyramid ages is developed in Africa. So when we see pyramids around the world, we see finished products. Dr. Clark, I give credit for him. He says, the science was created in Kemet, and then once we got our act together, we took the show on the road. Okay, so hopefully people will understand that. Some people will get it in the morning. Okay, all right, but...
Baba, you want to add on?
Talking about that, the names we use. Why not Kush? Why not Nubia? Why always Kemet?
Start with Kemet? Why we don't go back to the mother?
Well, we have been trying different ways to be inclusive. That's the reason why I insist we should start talking about Smai Tawi, the united two regions, which is inclusive of Cash and Nubia. We have to talk of the entire nation, not because that's why, and you are right. The reason why we stress Kemet so much is because it's our, library. A library in stone where the divine wisdom their ancestors brought from Central Equatorial Africa, and before that, from the stars. I know that's going to trip out a lot of people. But remember, people speak about, heaven is up there. No, we are all out here. We are traveling, we are cosmic beings traveling on a ship. Our very our head is upside down most of the time. We're only attached here by gravity, but we are cosmic journeyers. That's who we are. So in the book, The Ankh, which I wrote the afterword to the Ankh, Nur Ankh Amen is the author. At the end of of my piece that I wrote the afterword, I refer to us as Afra Kanubi Kemetic Kushite people. Okay? This resurrection is taking place especially in the islands. I go there pretty often. In Trinidad, more so than in Jamaica. But in Jamaica, it's gathering steam. Because one of the first Rastas who came to me to make him an Ankh, he suffered in Flatbush because his brothers would say, you Egyptian. Now check this. There are more brothers wearing the Ankh. In the Rasta system, you'll be surprised. Now, because of Muta Baruka, he had me on his show for 3.5 hours called The Cutting Edge in Jamaica several years ago. When I walked into the radio station, I heard my voice. I said, who's that? Where did you get that? He said, I lifted that off a tape you made, The Indwelling Healer with Queen Afua, where you were reading the Medu-Neter in hieroglyphics. And all the 42 laws of Ma'at, I was hearing my voice repeat these laws. So Muta Baruka has single-handedly helped the Rastas in Jamaica to claim the Kemetic heritage. I once sat down with an elder in Brooklyn, Elder Biddy, and the Rastas arranged for us to meet. Elder Biddy came to me with 3 Bibles under his arm. I said, my brother, you've already lost, because I know your book inside and out, but you don't know your own book. I said, don't you consider yourself a child of Ham? Why are you in your uncle's house? I keep on asking this. This whole idea of us being dragged over here in slavery during the slave trade, it's because of a made-up curse called the curse of Ham. So therefore, they were looking for the Hamites to enslave. But the Hamites were actually the Kemites. And you go down, when you do Tony Browder's, his thing called Nile and the Potomac, he will show you place for place how so many of these buildings are copying the style of our ancient ancestry. Here in New York, you look all over, you will see the architecture mirrors ancient Kemet. So these people are taking stuff that's not theirs, and because we don't know, we allow it to pass. So this curse of Ham was invented to bring the Kemites here. So that's why the resurrection is taking place here. I know there's a brother a Muslim who wrote a book, I forgot his name now. I had a conversation with him. He said, well, the African Americans are trying, but the real ones who got this are the French. I said, what? I was in shock. But again, because you see, the Arabs especially don't want us to find out. That's why when Mfundishi or when I go to Kemet, we have to train the guides how to speak about our legacy, because they're trained by these British Egyptologists who tell them a bunch of lies that they keep on passing on to the tourists. Don't you find you have to correct them, my brother?
Yes.
I spend most of my time correcting them.
A lot of times we just have them with us, but I usually do the lecture.
Right.
And they take notes.
Yes.
Because many of them cannot read the glyphs. You know, they took a 6-week course, and now they're the authority on this particular temple. You know, but again, I always talk about they're invaders. When we go there, we are coming to visit our ancestral shrines. That's what I explain. We're not tourists. So whenever we take a trip, we're not tourists. We're going to visit our ancestral shrines, because this is our legacy. It's not theirs. Like right now, the Arabs want to blow up the pyramids. They want to blow up Heru and Maketi because it's not theirs. They've already destroyed the Persian art and Iraq and Iran, and they've destroyed Timbuktu. They've destroyed all of that. So they want to obliterate our legacy. And I want to talk about real quick. There's 4 ways we honor our ancestors. Number 1 is we speak their names the way they spoke them. So that's why we enhance people and encourage people to speak the sa.neter. Speak their names. As long as your name is spoken, which is the utterance of your energy, then you are still active in the cosmos. Only when your name is forgotten do you dissipate into the energy of everything else. Second of all, we say deify their great works. And that's what we're doing. When you look at Samaj's Sa, he is deifying the great works. When we carry this ankhs, we are deifying the great works of our ancestors by honoring the image, the unification of our left and right brain, of male and female, and spiritual and physical. We are unifying that, and we are deifying that. Number 3 is we complete their incompleted works. And so part of this tape is part of that. Stuff that you have forgotten, we are here to remind you. And we are still building. And to the Amiwa squad, we don't have a patent on all of ancient Kemet. I need to understand that. We are just the elders, and hopefully we work together. And then fourthly, we leave images and edifice behind of who our ancestors are and who we are. And so that becomes really important. Those are 4 ways we have to honor. Remember, speak their names the way they're supposed, so their names are still in the air. Deify their great works. Complete their incompleted great works. And then leave images and edifice and works behind. So there's writing we still need to do. There's artwork we still need to do. And we need to make sure that everybody understands who we are. Yeah.
Right here in America, right over in Newark, visit the Temple of Anu, where Sanku Kepera is teaching. Yes. Okay, these are the 42 new ethical covenants of Ma'at. If you go on the shrineofpatah.org, you can read them there, and you can read some of the information leading up to how these came into being. Several people assisted in this, including my beloved brother Mfundishi. I was using a term Afro-American. He says, no, brother, it's African. He says, no, leave the American out. But of course, I fought with him a little bit. I said, because I don't want to throw away our American experience, because we were here long before Columbus, you know, and we brought the legacy with us too. However, this is how these new 42. Not do I flirt with ancestral treason by failing to identify myself as African in the Americas and the diaspora. Not do I discourage, number 2, devalue or do harm to a fellow African sister or brother, or fail to honor and keep my word. Number 3, not do I discriminate against my African sisters or brothers.
Say that one again. See, when I went out, the camera cut off. Say it again.
Oh, you see?
Say the next one.
Number 4, not do I participate in African genocide or tolerate agents who defame all indigenous life and their spiritual practices. 5, not do I indulge in genocidal gun terror in the streets and homes of my community. 6, not do I protect by my silence those who steal from or do violence to each other in my community. Number 7, not do I protect by my silence the enemies of Ma'at who threaten the peace and safety of my community. Number 8, not do I run and hide. Thank you, Brother Reggie, for that piece. Not do I run and hide from injustice done to an African by bullies who terrorize, nor do I retain silence as institutions retilianize and felonize our youth. Number 9, not do I fail to avoid in every possible way contact or confrontation with armed or unarmed public servants. 10, not do I tolerate the institutional racism, poverty, stress, and hopelessness, which are the main reasons for legal and illegal drug addiction, mental illness, suicides, and homicides. 11, not do I join any group which requires hazing or harmful initiations that cause injury or shame to another human being. Number 13, not do I violate, ignore, or marginalize our elders, or hesitate to seek the counsel of elders who are the wisdom keepers of our ancestral legacy. Not do I indulge in ageism, sexism, classism, militarism, or tolerate racism. That was number 12. I skipped that. Number 14, not do I hold on to beliefs which contradict my hereditary ancestral knowledge, history, and culture. Not do I address the divine in prayer or praise by paternal titles, names, or pronouns without honoring the maternal aspects. Like, for instance, we can say mother, father of all creation. Not do I join with any religion whose scriptures even remotely support chattel slavery, mutilation, torture, or murder. The book of Joshua. Not do I touch the body temple of a woman without her conscious consent or permission. Not do I verbally assault women, men, or children with vicious, evil, and hurtful words. Number 20, not do I sexually molest or tolerate the sexual molestation of the body and mind of any child. That one really rings a bell because we're hearing of so much going on today among certain elders who molest children. Not do I rape physically, mentally, or spiritually the body, mind, or spirit of any woman, man, or child. Not do I indulge or tolerate incest. Not do I engage in any sexual practice with man or woman which offends the elementary laws of hygiene. Are you getting this, my brother?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Not do I, as a man, waste the procreative power of my life essence through sexual excess, or I, as a woman, use abortions as a mean of birth control. My brother Mfundishi, you want to read the rest of these for me, please? From number 25.
Number 25.
Hold the mic towards his mouth.
You got some reading glasses? What's that?
Not do I partake
Point the mic to him, Baba.
of foods of substance such as sugar, whose side effects causes injury and health and wellness of my body. 26. Not do I fail to hydrate my body, temple, practice deep breathing, meditate, and exercise on a daily basis. 27. Not do I chemically alter my skin, complexion, or hair texture. 28. Not do I volunteer my body temple as a billboard to be branded again by historical oppressors. 29. Not do I fail to fast at the 4 seasons, changes of the year, and periodically according to my personal needs. 30. Not do I damage my liver by harboring fear, hatred, jealousy, anger, envy, greed, or self-pity. 31. Not do I fail to support and give historical, cultural, and spiritual guidance to the children I have birthed. 32. Not do I fail to support, instruct, encourage, and protect the children of my community. 33. Not do I fail to teach the youth of my community to learn, live, uphold, and practice these sacred Ma'at Ka virtues. Covenants. 34. Not do I fail to support with my economic power farmers, gardeners, health practitioners, artists, entrepreneurs, builders, craftswomen, and craftsmen of my community. 35. Not do I feed with my economic power or ties the treasury of racist businesses or fundamentalist misogynist religions. 36. Not do I as an elder or counselor take advantage of the spiritual, mental, and sexual vulnerability of those I guide or counsel. 37. Not do I mistake letters or degrees from my colleges or universities as indicative of an authority in holistic education. 38. Not do I display in my home, school, or place of worship images of spiritual teachers or prophecies contrary to their cultural, ethnic, and geographical origins. 39. Not do I disrespect, devalue, or bootleg intellectual properties or fail to give credit where due to those in my community. 40. Not do I dress or exhibit behavior which invites or provokes disrespect, shock, or pity. 41. Not do I fail to honor my divine mate, my financial responsibility to the household, and bequeath and decree the safeguard and inheritance. Number 42. Not do I pollute the environment, denature the seeds or soil, or disregard or challenge the natural laws of the universe. The Shrine of Ptah.
So you can go to the Shrine of Ptah. This is done on 100-pound paper. You can display this in your home and teach it to your children, and be sure that they understand these new covenants of Maat. It doesn't mean that we're replacing the old ones. Those are very necessary because they're an ancestral legacy. But we need some new things because we've become a different people. Many of us have gone crazy. We have adopted some very bad habits. And now we have on television, on radio, on every media, every effort to turn us away from the law of the Ankh that mandates that life is transmitted through the womb, through the henanum that brings forth the children. No matter how much you may try, 2 wombs cannot bring life. 2 henanums cannot bring life. You need the masculine and the feminine to bring forth life. This is our order. People say, how do you feel about this lifestyle or that lifestyle? I say, well, I just hold this up because this is my art. This is my answer. Okay? This answer lasted for thousands of years, and it's still relevant to us. Now, other people can do what they want and take chances with their lives, having to wear diapers in their old age and things like that, but we are going to hold on to our divine key of life, because this is the key of sacred balance. And that's the reason why I insist that we have to stop praying to a deity that's only male. All your angels are male. That's why I told the audience up at that war conference that you had, that the brothers would have to take their Vaseline to heaven of all the 3 major Western religions, because there are no female angels in the heavens of all those 3 major Western religions. There's not one female angel. Something is up with that. No wonder child molestation takes place in heaven, because the archangels may be molesting the cherubs. And so we see it playing right here on earth in the Roman church, because it's the Romans also that brought some of that mess into our land. And it's replaying now in our DNA. And that's part of the reason for all of this madness that we see going on. Elders molesting little boys and little girls.
I just want to say something to the youth and to our confused people who are now saying, how can we be a part of this legacy? How can we promote? How do we, you see, our parents used to tell us, get a good education so you can get a good job. We know that was bad information. We respect our parents because we know they loved us, but we know that was faulty information, because usually they meant by get a good education was let the Europeans, the Wazungu, educate us. And by in their institutions, in their schools with their degrees. And then not create a job, but get a job working for them. So that was just a good plantation position. So we're saying, I want to leave this 4 things with you. Number 1, find something that you love. Everybody was sent here on a mission. No human soul was here without a mission. Find something that you love, that resonates with your spirit, your soul. Number 2, become good at it. That means become so good at it that you become an expert at that which you love. When you become an expert at that which you love, then you will be financially and economically rewarded. That means that you will be able to sustain your life, your family, and be able to build on the legacy. But now I have to put part 4 to that. It has to uplift you as a human being. It has to uplift your people, African people, and it has to contribute to humanity. Because see, some of y'all might turn out to be drug dealers. You say, yeah, I love it, and I'm good at it, and I'm getting paid. But it doesn't uplift you, your people, or humanity. So you have to find something that is going to contribute to our upliftment as a people and the resurrection of African people. Because we're being rebirthed right now. Everybody is tapping into this Kemetic legacy.
That's right.
All religions, everybody owe us a due, owe us a debt. And all we're saying is that give homage to your father and mothers.
Now, Mfundishi, I gotta say this because, you know, the Moors out there are taking credit for the Kemetic science being here in America. They say and teach that if it was not for the Moors, they were the true custodians of the sa.neter, of the Kemetic science. And if it was not for the Moors, we wouldn't be knowing about the Kemetic science today. How much truth is that, my brother?
Listen, I don't want to be in any debate with Moors because we're Moors, okay, to some degree, to some degree. Yes, we are the original people here in North America, but life did not start here in North America. Life started on the continent Africa. You were not skateboarding across the Atlantic as the planets, as the continents moved, okay? So we are the original people here, and yes, our science from the Nile Valley was brought here, and then they are caretakers of that same science. So we're not in debate with that. Right, Moor is just a new name, okay? All right, so you look, the Olmecs come from the Happy Valley. That's the first high civilization that we know of in North America. Look at the giant Olmec heads. Those are Africans from the Happy Valley. They still got the Kushite helmets on their head. They still got the braids and the locks on the back of their head. Just like Tutankhamun had the braids and locks on the back of his head. And so, no, the Moors are on tune. It's just that for some reason, some of our young people don't want to give credit to the Happy Valley. We are all fighting the same fight, and we all have the same enemy. We need operational unity, I call it. Within the nation, remember we had those 4 different cosmologies in ancient Kemet, but we were not fighting amongst each other because we all understood that we were all divine beings. So our Moors need to understand that we are all divine beings.
Sir, I just for clarification, when you mean more, right? Let's just go back. Can you define it? Because you're separating out a group of people from the larger African people to make them important, and why? Why are you saying that they are important? Maybe it's just a definition that will help sweep this, give this a little bit more clarity. But you are separating out a group of people, and you know that there's a whole nother orientation on it. There's the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, and then there's other types of orientation. Why are you trying to make them special? And then there's the people from the Congo, there's the people from Nigeria, right? Why are you, just let me hear your definition.
Okay, first of all, I'm not trying to make them special. You just mentioned the Moors, so I was just reiterating on that since it was just brought up. But no, they are no more special than any of the other groups. It's just that since we're here in North America, these people have claimed that name, and so we are just using that. But they are part of the Happy Valley. They are part of the Kemetic legacy. They're part of the African legacy, just here in North America.
I'm sure that the Moors who are in Spain, that their blood is in my veins. My grandmother was from Spain, And if you're from Spain, because the Africans who went to the Iberian Peninsula, they dealt with every female that they came in contact with. So those people who like to claim that they're so pure in their blood that they divorced themselves from Spain to become white, they have to know that the Moorish blood is in you. So that's in me too. Maybe that's part of the reason why I'm so into this legacy. But beyond that, to me, we can argue all we want, but the proof is in the doing. I got tired of just lecturing about this, about teaching about it. That's why I stopped teaching groups. I still teach, but I teach with manifesting the legacy. For instance, this that I'm wearing here, this that I'm in my hand here, this is a symbol of the upraised hands that are being used now as police don't shoot, right? Hands up, don't shoot. You heard that? Okay. Well, here our ancestors had the car symbol. Thousands of years before that, our sisters and brothers put up their hands, say, police don't shoot. Inside of the car, we have the ankh. The hands that are holding up the feathers of Ma'at. Isn't that what we want? Truth, honesty, justice, reciprocity. So to me, it's in the doing of the legacy. I also do some protest work. Like this here is the image of a slave ship. Come right up on it. And in the center of the deck where these slaves are laid out, these enslaved Africans are laid out. This is a ship called the good ship Jesus. Okay? And there's a cross in the middle of the ship that I designed showing that people who call themselves Christians did this to us. And then one of the slave captains wrote a song that loved to sing, and I don't know why they love to sing that Amazing Grace song. If they knew that a slave master who said he got converted because by grace, but if he was converted by Ma'at, why the Amamit would be there to gobble up his heart in our legacy. Okay, I also made another, I didn't bring it with me, one that I showed one of our brothers lynched on a cross. I call it the lynched savior. You know, we talk about a lynching that took place 2,000 years ago. What about Emmett Till? Is his life not as important as anybody else's? What about that brother that dragged behind that truck in Texas, James Byrd? And on and on. Let's name all of these saviors of our race. Right? And these same people who say that they believe in Jesus, that burn his cross on our lawn. You see? So these are some of the things we've got to begin to look at. And I believe that we can create subtle stress for the opposition by just wearing the emblems of our culture. Because the one thing that makes the oppressor mad is when people of African descent claim Kemet as their legacy. That pisses them off. And that's the reason why they're making these stupid movies, what they call X-Men, Gods of Egypt.
Redid the Exodus.
They're redoing the Exodus with a bunch of pink with pink people, because they know that we are on the horizon, and it's not going to stop. I used to look at these young people here who's got this legacy, who are actually living this legacy. And red and blue pill, okay, their mama. All of us are living this legacy. So it's all over. They can do whatever they want to us elders now because the cat is out of the bag and Sekhmet is on the prowl, ain't he?
We have the new 42, right? And we've always had 42s, right? Of declarations of innocence and affirmations, right? Now, when you put these, now we can use these 42 and go back historically and put these on people, right? This group of people who they call the Moors, right? Based on their expression from coming in from North Africa, going into Spain, ultimately involving themselves in the slave trade, right? How could you say that, yes, they were people of African people, but are you going to try to say that they were following any of this legacy right here? Any of this as a group or civilization? I'm not talking about people here who call themselves Moors to describe themselves. I am talking about the historical Moor that found them, that were Arabized.
No, they was enslaving African people.
That's right. Right. But that's what I'm saying. That were Arabized, that enslaved and conquered the Berbers, that moved over to West Africa because they didn't bring their women now. They used other women. That historical group of people who maybe now because of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali pointing us to that direction and others, are you going to tell me that those people followed any of this stuff close to the 42? That's my concern, because you know what, we have to get into some temple discipline, and both of you do temple discipline, right? There's some things that you do and you do not do, and there's some people you accept and you don't accept, and then there's some people who you see even as students or people that you taught. Mfundishi say that all the time. No, I know him. He's not a real student of mine. You separate. How come we can separate when we do it like that, but we have historical people who have done each fet, and then we still praise them?
Well, I don't know if anybody is praising them, Brother Reggie, so I think maybe you got some things confused. Okay. All right. So I think maybe only because they are presenting some information that people are ignorant of. And so therefore, sometimes when somebody seems more knowledgeable than you, you tend to give them some respect. So I think they're getting respect upon teaching some knowledge that people have forgotten. But no, we are not homaging or being part of people who are anti the 42 oracles of Ma'at, or anti these 42 covenants. We are not embracing people who belong to a spiritual system that's responsible for the enslavement of African people. So if you still embrace that, no, we are not embracing you that way. But we understand there can be operational unity.
All right, let's let Baba Heru close out after he finishes.
Okay. I avoid arguments. Like Dr. Clark says, I don't argue, I don't debate, I teach. You see, there's no need for me to, because I realize one thing, that we are all where we need to be at any given time. We're all going to get there, but we are where we need to be at any given time. The Moors want to be with that history, more power to you, my brothers. You Hebrew Israelites, you want to be with that, more power to you. I have no need to fight with you. You see, I'm a Maatian, and I be sure that I cleanse my temple so I'm not pissed off all the time. And so I don't be cursing my brothers and sisters, calling them names. If I call you the N-word, it'll be Negus, Negusti, King of Kings, because we are all, we're all kings rising and queens rising. So I don't believe in this constant back and forth. I feel that the Moors are going to attract the people who are at their level of comprehension. So will the Hebrew Israelites, so will the Rastas, every single one of them. But the beautiful thing about all of them is that they are studying their way, and maybe as they study deeper, they're going to find out more and more truth, and they will come on board, because it all came back, it all came from this source anyway. It's got to go back to the source that it came from. So I'm going to just close out by saying this in the ancient Mpu Nkra. Amasu Npa Nkra, Sauk Su Ement Ra Npa Ntra, Awu Kuawura, Maketi Pa Herura. Give yourself to the divine. Keep yourself daily for the divine, and do it tomorrow as you do it today. And before I go, just let me say this. You can just affirm this every day. Say, Nuk Punuk Ku, Nuk Punuk Ku. I am that I am light. Nuka Punuka Ku, Nuka Punuka Ku. I am that I am light. Repeat that over and over and affirm that you are light, and you will be light. They said in the beginning was the word, but no, it was the womb, but out of the womb came the one that uttered the word. Nuk Punuk Ku.
I want to remind us, you might be asking, well, why are these brothers dressed kind of like this? We don't have a costume on like some of my Hebrew Israelite brothers or something like that. Right. We are dressed in a resurrection of the Kemetic legacy. of the spirit. So we're living this. Dr. John Henry Clark said, they laughed at our clothes and we changed them. They laughed at our language, we changed them. They laughed at our names, we changed them. Right. They laughed at our spiritual system, and we changed it. We are here to bring things back. So we are wearing the clothes of our ancestors and clothes from Africa. We are evoking the names of Africa and our legacy. We are learning the language of our African, and we are teaching our children the legacy of Africa. It just so happens to be coming through the Nile Valley.
So I just want to say the garments I wear, we call this hebsa. Hebsa means protective garments for men. The women wear pedessa, called protective garment for women. You see, we both have the wings on our shoulders because we are both Heru. You see? So we got our garments represent, even, look, the side of these slacks here, it has a pleat, an inverted pleat, to remind us of the divine feminine principle out of which we came. Okay, so when I walk, I'm able to touch the divine feminine principle. Even in my garments, I put the woman in my garments to honor the divine principle. You see, we have to actually do this instead of just talking about it. And that's what I'm about. That's why I don't talk too much. That's why I've stopped giving lectures and stuff, even though I'm going to be doing, a matter of fact, I've been invited to come to Atlanta to do something there. I'll be, hopefully, sometime in September, I'm supposed to be doing an event at Tassili's Raw Reality, a beautiful raw food restaurant in Atlanta. It's on Ralph Abernathy Boulevard. I forgot the exact address. But again, I'll be doing a little bit of traveling. When I go to Tortola, I honor the elder in Wokioji Pika. He took over from the African Pioneer Movement. I forgot the name of I didn't forget, it's just slipped me right now, the name of the elder. But Pika took over that movement, and he was a Garveyite himself. And I go and I visit him. He's 86 years old, 87 years old now. Carlos Cooks, yeah. He was in Carlos Cooks' movement. And so the FBI told him to get out of town, and he did. And his father-in-law introduced him to Carlos Cooks. And so when I go down there, I take care of him. I give him a massage. I cut his toenails because he's my elder, so I have to honor my elder. So I give thanks for the privilege of coming on here and sharing the little bit of knowledge that I have with my brothers and sisters. I want to give a shout out to Sister Sakara, who did so much to help us to formulate the 42 covenants of Ma'at, to Red and Blue Pill and their mother, Mama Pill, to so many of our brothers and sisters, to Sister Imani, who is our temple chantress. She chants in all of the spiritual houses. To the sacred woman, Queen Afua's sacred woman, who I spoke to in the Gateway of Chehudi just the other day. And to all of you who have gone through Kemetic 101 and Sacred Kingmen that I don't see anymore, because you know when you come into my presence you're going to be a little embarrassed because you got a pot belly that you shouldn't have as a young African man. And so I forgive you for all of that. Just go and fast and cleanse up the body temple. My 18 years with Queen Afua drilled into me the importance of maintaining this body temple. And that's the reason why Mfundishi and I, we go out of our way to get our clothes made, because if you say that this is the temple of the Most High, how are you going to dress it? What you going to feed it if this is the temple of the Most High? If the Most High dwells within you, are you going to give the Most High hot dogs? Huh? Are you going to give the Most High hamburgers filled with stebesterol and all these chemicals that's going to change your sexual apparatus? No, I don't think so. So let's get with it. Let's begin to live this legacy instead of just talking about it. And let's stop quarreling. I don't want to fight with these brothers. I want to invite them to acknowledge where they got their stuff from. Hotep.
Hotep.
Shem Em Hotep.
Shem Em Hotep. Ankh Uja sa.neter. Dua enter.
Thank you, my brothers. I appreciate that. Any last words from you, brother? Make it quick, too, Brother Reggie.
No, except for I want everybody to heed Brother Mfundishi Jehudi Mess's word that he is inviting Dr. Riketi Amin at the African Arts Festival, and she will be with him. She is such a gift to our people, right? And so we need to come out, and I just don't want that to be lost, because of course I'm going to be around, right? Because she has taught generations of us to speak the sa.neter, and she deserves honor. So bring open your wallets and your purses, and just give freely to the sister, and just say dua and say thanks, because she has helped us so much. If it wasn't for her, we would get there, but not as fast as we got there, right?
All right, let me get the other young brother real quick, because he wanted to say something.
All right.
State your name first, brother. Let them know who you are.
Peace, family. I am Kemetic Heru. Dua to my elders. Dua Baba Heru for having me. Dua sa.neter for establishing this platform for us to get the information as fast and as quick as possible. Dua to Mfundishi for introducing me to the Kemetic legacy. Has taught me so much, and it's opened my eyes to the bigger picture. For those who may be against this information, that may try to debunk this information, you will only be a fool to. If you're following these doctrines like the Bible, and you're following these movements like the Hebrew Israelites, you're heading down the wrong path, because we don't need a guideline in order to have good character, to know what's right and what's wrong. We come into this vessel in this being as people of Ma'at. And if you need a guideline, Kemet has it for you. But for me, I've realized that we don't need anything but nature. Like, nature has all the answers for us, whether you're dealing with food. If you pay attention to nature, you'll see how to adapt to your environment. It's naturally encoded in our DNA. I just wanted to put that out there for the people. But if you do need a guideline, Kemet has it for you.
Let me ask you, what were you studying and practicing before Brother Mfundishi introduced you and Brother Baba introduced you into the Kemetic science? What were y'all doing before?
Peace, family. I'm Ban Ra. But we wasn't in any religion or spiritual system. That's why I appreciate the fact that our parents left the door open for us to vent for ourselves and not feed us any lies and shove it down our throats. And while we was able to have an open mind and receive this information from our ancestry and our elders like Mfundishi and Baba Heru. So that's peace. But it's definitely necessary for those who speak out of ignorance to tap into the legacy and find the truth that's within the legacy. It's nothing but symbolism in nature, and once you get back to nature, you'll find all the answers you need. The Bible doesn't have it for you. All of these master teachers that you praise definitely don't have it for you. They're leading us all down the wrong path. The key is getting back to nature. I want to give a shout out to Dr. Sabi for introducing me to alkaline foods and really reimbursing the natural foods that we should be consuming, because it starts with our bodies and our temples. What we consume ultimately creates our thought process and what we have to bring to each other. So the key is balance, the key is nature, in my opinion. Thank you for this opportunity for me to speak.
I just want to give a shout out, because the last time I was here, I gave a shout out to my children, my elder born, Everay, my second, Elatan, my third, Pata, my daughter, Kamena, my daughter, Sesheta, and the three beautiful children by Queen Afua, Supernova, Ali, and Cherise. Peace and Hetep and power to all of you. And may you continue to grow in the legacy and be a shining example for our divine culture. Hotep.
I want to say EM Hotep and give a shout out to my spiritual and biological family, to my daughter Zuwaina Iman Salim, my son Hassan Iman Salim, their mother Cynthia Salim. I want to give out to Shishatmas and my divine mate Ifashua. Thank you, and to the shrine of Jehuti Harud Nephu and the thousands of students that I have taught. I say dua to you, because a teacher is nothing without students. A giver of knowledge is nothing unless they have someone to give that knowledge to. So I want to say dua to the whole Kemetic family and to all minds who are open to this legacy. sa.neter.
Oh yeah. Sa.neter. Oh yeah. Welcome to sa.neter, sa.neter Studios. We don't get no better than consciousness info. Sa.neter TV 7. You keep it hot 24/7. You got that black Prof 102. Sa.neter TV 2. Yeah.
You are now inside sa.neter Studios, the house of consciousness production.